"Don't throw away my lunch," she whispered. The CEO opened it after she left. The young woman stood frozen beside the CEO's office trash bin, her trembling hands clutching a small gray lunch bag as tears filled her eyes. Every employee pretended not to notice. The CEO, Daniel Carter, barely looked up from the papers on his desk when she whispered 7 heartbreaking words that would change both of their lives forever. "Don't throw away my lunch." Minutes later, she quietly resigned, walked out of the building, and disappeared. But when Daniel finally opened the lunch bag she had begged him to save, everything he believed about success, leadership, and kindness shattered in an instant. Before we continue, if you believe kindness can change lives and everyone deserves a second chance, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Echoes for more emotional stories that remind us humanity still exists. Daniel Carter was known throughout Carter Technologies as a brilliant businessman but a cold-hearted leader. At only 39, he had transformed a struggling company into a billion-dollar corporation through discipline, impossible standards, and ruthless decisions. Employees respected him, but almost none of them smiled when he walked through the halls. To Daniel, emotions slowed people down. Personal struggles belonged outside the office. Performance was all that mattered. Among hundreds of employees worked 26-year-old Emma Collins, a quiet administrative assistant who never complained despite carrying invisible burdens heavier than anyone imagined. Every morning she arrived before sunrise, cleaned her tiny desk, organized everyone's schedules, and quietly completed every task asked of her. She skipped expensive coffee breaks, never joined office lunches, and always carried the same faded gray lunch bag. Most coworkers assumed she was simply shy. No one knew that after work she rushed across town to care for her younger brother Noah, who suffered from a serious kidney illness while waiting for a transplant. Every dollar Emma earned paid hospital bills, medications, rent, and food. There was never enough. One difficult Monday, Daniel noticed Emma looking exhausted during an important executive meeting. When she accidentally dropped a folder, several documents scattered across the polished conference room floor. The silence felt endless as executives exchanged uncomfortable glances. Daniel's disappointment showed clearly. Without raising his voice, he simply instructed human resources to replace her with someone who could handle pressure better. Emma quietly nodded, gathered her belongings, and walked toward the exit carrying only her handbag and the familiar lunch bag. Near the office door, she paused beside the trash bin. Looking back with tired eyes filled with fear rather than anger, she softly whispered the words that echoed through Daniel's office long after she left. She asked him not to throw away her lunch. Daniel barely acknowledged the request, assuming she had forgotten something sentimental. Once she disappeared into the elevator, he returned to work, believing the matter was over. Hours later, after every meeting ended and the office became silent, Daniel noticed the lunch bag still sitting beside the trash bin exactly where Emma had left it. Something about her trembling voice disturbed him. Almost against his own instincts, he picked up the worn bag and slowly unzipped it. Inside there was no expensive meal, no forgotten valuables, and no personal treasure. There was a simple peanut butter sandwich cut carefully into 2 pieces, a tiny apple, a handwritten note covered in careful handwriting, and several colorful drawings folded neatly together. The note was not addressed to Daniel. It was written for Noah. Emma had written that today's lunch was only half because she wanted her little brother to have the larger portion after dialysis. She apologized for not buying fruit he loved because medicine had become more expensive that week. She promised him everything would get better one day and reminded him never to feel guilty for being sick. At the bottom she had written, "Even if I lose my job today, I will find another one. I promised Mom I would always protect you." Daniel unfolded the colorful drawings. They showed 2 stick figures holding hands beneath a bright blue sky. One was labeled Emma. The other was Noah. Above them was a giant smiling sun with the words, "Thank you for sharing your lunch with me every day, sis." For the first time in years, Daniel felt completely unable to breathe. He remembered being 12 years old, watching his own mother secretly skip dinner so he could eat after his father abandoned their family. Success had buried those memories beneath board meetings and profit reports, but Emma's forgotten lunch uncovered every painful moment he thought he had escaped. The next morning Daniel arrived before sunrise and searched every department for Emma. She never came back. Human Resources explained she had accepted temporary cleaning work at a nearby hospital because it allowed flexible hours around Noah's treatments. Daniel drove there immediately. He found Emma quietly mopping a hallway outside the children's dialysis unit. She looked embarrassed to see him but continued working without resentment. Daniel apologized more sincerely than he ever had to anyone. He admitted he had judged her without understanding her struggles. He asked her to return to Carter Technologies, not because he pitied her, but because the company desperately needed people with integrity stronger than any resume. Emma hesitated. Trust, once broken, is difficult to rebuild. But Daniel made changes that day, extending far beyond one employee. He created emergency family assistance programs, flexible schedules for caregivers, mental health support, and anonymous hardship funds for workers facing impossible situations. He insisted every manager learn the stories behind the people they supervised before judging their performance. Months later, Noah finally received a successful kidney transplant. Emma returned to work, this time leading the company's employee wellness department, helping families who quietly carried burdens just as she once had. Daniel kept the faded gray lunch bag in a glass display inside his office. Whenever visitors asked why such an ordinary bag occupied a place where awards once stood, he simply smiled and said it reminded him that leadership begins with compassion, not authority. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to write in the comments, "Kindness always matters." Your words may encourage someone silently fighting battles we cannot see. As Emma watched Noah run through a park for the first time without pain, she realized life had not changed because someone wealthy saved her. It changed because one person finally chose to look beyond appearances and listen to a whisper that almost everyone else ignored. Sometimes the smallest lunch bag carries the biggest lesson, and sometimes the greatest success any of us can achieve is simply refusing to throw away another person's hope. If this story inspired you, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Echoes. Together, let's spread compassion, second chances, and the reminder that every act of kindness has the power to change a life forever.